So in today's session, we are going to discuss what is SAP and what are the different modules in SAP and what is the basic concept of this SAP, and where there's in the modules means what is the basic importance of our BW application and the versions of this BW application and the basic advantage of BW application in the SAP projects and the versions. Those things we'll discuss in today's session. Okay. So SAP stands for the systems, applications, and the products in data processing. SAP stands for systems, applications, and the products in data processing. So basically, SAP is a German product which was developed in 1970s. So in the year 1972, they have released the first version of SAP system, that is SAP R2. What is SAP here? SAP, it is just like a brand name, just like any other applications like Microsoft and Oracle and all. SAP is just like a brand name. So the first version, it was released in the year 1972 with the R2 version. R2 means which has a two-tier architecture. They will be having the two layers. The top layer, we call it as the presentation layer, and the bottom layer, which has the database and application systems. So that is what we call it as two-tier architecture. But in 1979, they have released the complete SAP R3 system, which is what we call it as three-tier architecture. Three-tier architecture. All of you, please mute your mic, videos. Okay. Three-tier architecture means they will be having the three layers. The top layer, what we call it as presentation layer. The presentation layer, which will connect it to the application layer. The application layer will be connected to the database layer. Just like I told you in the yesterday, we have some example of Gmail account, our email account. So the Gmail, once we enter our user ID and password, so once we give the enter, that user information will be sent it to the application layer, like application server. The application server would be somewhere else in the Singapore and wherever it is. And in the application server level, it will check the validations, like the user ID and password is correct or not. If it is correct, it will try to get the corresponding information from the database server, which will be there somewhere in the US. So that is called three-tier architecture, which was released in the year 1979 in Germany. The headquarters is a Waldorf, based on the concept called as ERP. Based on the concept called as ERP. So what do you mean by ERP? So like ERP stands for enterprise, resource, and then planning. ERP stands for enterprise, resource, and planning. So what do you mean by enterprise, resource, and then planning? So enterprise is nothing but when you want to start any business, we need to have some, so like enterprise, so like any business organization, like any business industry. So like any organization, what we call it as enterprise, any big businesses. So when you want to start, when you want to establish any business, you must be having some basic resources. So what are the basic resources to start, like to run my business is? The first one is finance, that is money, the manpower, the material, machinery, and followed by the marketing to sell the product to the market. So these are the basic resources to start any sort of business. The planning is nothing but optimum utilization of the resources in our business, what we call it as planning. Optimum utilization of the resources in our business, what we call it as planning. Okay, like how we need to run our businesses. So that is what we call it as planning. So this is what ERP stands for. So ERP is nothing but any business industry, what we call it as enterprise. The resources is nothing but when you want to start any business, you must have some basic resources like money, manpower, material, machinery, and marketing. The planning is nothing but how optimized you are able to utilize our resources in our business, what we call it as planning. So this is what ERP. So finally, when you want to start any business, we need to plan our resources in such a way that which makes your business should be in a proper manner. So what exactly this ERP is? When you want to start any business, we need to plan our resources in such a way that which makes your business should be in a proper manner. That is what exactly ERP stands for. So based on the ERP concept, the SAP is coming to the picture. So what I told you, SAP is, sorry, I could not understand. Please, Yerja, Mangori, all of you, could you please mute your mics? If anything wants to talk to me, you can talk. Okay, right. So this is what ERP stands for. So based on this ERP concept, the SAP comes into the picture. So when they release SAP R3 system, this R3 system which has been released, divided into three kinds of modules. So three kinds of modules. What are those modules? The functional modules, technical modules, and then administration modules. The functional modules, technical modules, and the administration modules. So what are these functional modules? The functional modules in the sense which is related to the finance, material, production, sales, billing, delivery, human resources, all these departments, we just call it as the functional modules of SAP R3 system. All these departments, we call it as functional modules of SAP R3 system. Vivo, could you mute your video? Vivo, could you mute your video? And the technical module, you'll be having only one pure programming language, that is ABAP 4. The technical module, you'll be having pure programming language, that is ABAP 4. Okay, ABAP 4 means advanced business application programming. It is a pure programming module in SAP system. 4 means fourth generation language. That is the next generation language, what we call it as ABAP 4. And we have some administration module, which is the server administration module, what we call it as basis module. So the server administration, like where we'll be maintaining the users, roles, authorization, securities, backup recoveries, everything will be taken care by the basis people. So when they release this SAP R3 system has been divided into these three kinds of modules. One would be the functional modules, the technical modules, and then administration module. So when you decide this SAP R3 system, so look at this. So these are what we call it as modules. So when you want to implement this SAP software in our business, when you want to implement this SAP software in our business, how would we correlate these all these modules to our business departments? Let's say, for example, why generally this we call it as SAP is called as ERP means. So let's say, for example, we have I just want to start a business to manufacture a product X. Just assume that I have a plan to start my business to manufacture a product X. Like in general, when you want to start any business, so you must be having enough capital to start my business, right? That is what the finance area, you must be having enough money to start my business. That is what the finance department. And then you just purchasing the raw material from the vendor to develop my product. That is what the vendor department. And once we get the complete raw material, we can't use the complete raw material directly into my production. We need to test the quality of the raw material. This is what the quality area, and then maintain the finished raw material in the warehouse. This is material warehouse. Later we start our production. Once the product comes out, again it should go to the quality assurance. This is what the quality department before release to the market. So after the quality checks done, then we start selling that product to the customer. So then the customer will get follow and billing, and if anything is there related to tax, and finally every business will have some human resources department. So in general, this could be the basic cycle to start any sort of business. Okay, but here when you compare this complete business flow to our SAP system, like SAP R3 system, see here all these departments are tightly integrated with this other departments. All these departments are tightly integrated with this other departments. That is the most advantage of SAP when you compare with this other ERP product in the market. Of course, we have other ERP products in the market other than SAP. What are those ERP products? Like Oracle Finance, JD Edwards, PeopleSoft, Barn, Sibyl CRM. Like this, those are also ERP products. But comparatively, this SAP, why it has been acquired, the 70% of the ERP market is because of this tight integration. I mean to say, the SAP software would suits for any kind of business, whether it is a manufacturing business, producting business, or a finance, imports and exports business. One is charitable business, charitable departments, or insurance sectors, banking sectors, pharmaceutical sector, anything which suits this SAP application. So that is the reason why SAP acquires more than 70% of this ERP market. Okay, right. But when you compare this all these departments to our SAP modules, look at this. We have finance department. This finance department, which is related to the module called as FICO, finance and controlling. And we have vendor and material departments. These are related to the module called as material management. Material management. And we have a production planning module, which relates to the department called as production department. And we have the customer and billing and delivery sales, which are related to the module called as sales and distribution. Like we have HR department, HR module, which relates to the department called as HR. So like this, all these departments, we can say the functional modules of SAP are three systems. All these departments, we can say the functional modules of SAP are three systems. We have a technical module, right? ABAP 4 to integrate all these departments. Generally in the back end, we write some ABAP coding. With the help of ABAP coding, it has been integrated with each and every module. And what about the other module? Basis module. This is server administration module. The basis module, it just takes care the welfare of this SAP system. Just takes care of the welfare of the SAP system. Like they would be providing the users, roles, authorizations, securities, backup recoveries. Like this, everything will be taken care by the which module? Basis module. But so in this business flow, we just compare the functional modules, technical modules, and then administration modules. But what about our business warehouse? Where does it stand, this business warehouse? Business warehouse, BW, business intelligence, BI, both are same. SAP BW, SAP BI, both are same. So where does it stand? If you observe this one, the BW which stands in center for this all the departments. This BW application which stands in center for all the departments. Why it is maintaining in center? Because here these are the departments which is having some data from different sources, right? So the source of the data, either the data source of the data could be either a SAP source or a non-SAP source. If it is a non-SAP source, either it could be the flat file or a DB2 or a mainframe, Oracle, any kind of data. So if the source of the data like can be anything for any departmental data, either a finance, vendor, material, customer, production, HR, whatever it is. Let the data comes from any source for any departmental data. Finally, the data should come into this business warehouse. Finally, the data should come into this business warehouse. So what exactly this business warehouse? The business warehouse is the warehouse system which is maintaining more of historical data with the aggregated format. The BW which maintains more of historical data with the aggregated format. On top of that, it allows you to generate the analytical reports. On top of that, it allows you to generate the analytical reports. So in the BW level, which maintains huge volume of data for all these departments, for all the sources. Finally, in the better way, it organizes the data in a better way, and to maintain in the summarized format, it could be helpful for generating the analytical reports. So that is why the BW system will be center for all these modules. Generally in the SAP implementations, so the client top level management, so based on their client decisions, based on their client forecasting business decisions, we should be in a position to give it the data in the form of report. We should be in a position to provide the data in the form of reports. So that is why the BW consultants mostly will be interacting with the top level management based on their decisions, based on their business decisions. We should be in a position to provide the data. Sorry. So we should be in a position to provide the forecasting analytical data in the form of reports. That is what exactly the BW will be sitting in center for this, all these modules. Okay. So till now, I hope you're able to understand the concept as of now. I hope you got the concept as of now.
Yes.
Okay. Right.
Okay.
Right. Thank you. So coming to this business warehouse, as I told you, SAP R3 system, we have only the functional modules, technical modules, and then administration modules. There is no BW here. But SAP R3 system, which was released in the year 1979. But what about this BW? The first version of the BW, which was released in the year 1998. The first version of the BW, which was released in the year 1998. But what we are happily saying that SAP BW is in a data warehousing system with optimized data structures for reporting and analysis. So with the help of BW, we can maintain the data in an organized way, which maintains more of historical data, which could be helpful for forecasting their client businesses. Like that, we are happily saying that. But the BW, which was released in the year 1998 only. But SAP R3 system, which was released in the year 1979. In the year 1979. So, like before 1998, what happened? So when you observe this one, before 1998, there was no BW system, only SAP R3 system. We call it as updated version, what we call it as ECC system. SAP R3 system, what we call it as ECC system. ECC means what I told you, enterprise central component. This R3, next version is ECC, just like BWBI. Okay. So this SAP R3 system, we have different functional modules with the ABAP and the basis. But before 1999, so even there was no BW system, the SAP implementations, they used to maintain the data and they used to generate the reports, right? So they used to maintain the data and they used to generate the reports. But before 1998, how it is maintained? So, but still, we are using still with the help of ABAP. They used to maintain the data, they used to generate the reports with the help of ABAP module. So with the help of ABAP module, they used to maintain the data and they used to generate the reports before 1998. But still, ABAP is the core module for with respect to SAP R3 system. ABAP is the core module with respect to R3 system. So, but still ABAP is there. Why SAP people design this BW system in the year 1998? But the thing is here, when they were using ABAP, it has got some problems. They were facing some problems. So they used to face some problems. So what kind of problems they used to face? Because here, since SAP R3 system is the regular transaction system, I mean to say the day-to-day transactions we are posting into SAP R3 system. The regular transactions in the sense when they are creating any invoice order creation, sales order creation, purchase order creation, finance transactions. So through all these departments, they are posting day-to-day transactions into SAP R3 system from one end. They used to post the transactions from the one end in the business hours, but from the other end, by using this ABAP, they used to generate the reports, they used to organize the data. So since multiple functions are running on the same time on my server, obviously it was impacting on my server performance. It was impacting on my server performance. I mean to say, it might cause the additional stress on the existing transaction system. Because of the multiple functions, it might cause the additional stress on the existing transaction system, and also too much complexity in terms of arranging the data, and also too much complexity so they face in terms of arranging the data. And also with the help of ABAP, they won't be generating any kind of analytical reports. So by considering all these basic factors, what is the first factor? So since multiple functions are running on the same time, like, so from one end they are posting the day-to-day transactions, like by creating the purchase order, sales order, invoice order, document numbers, whatever it is. But from the other end, by using this ABAP, they were trying to design the reports and whatever it is. Since multiple functions are running at the same time, it might cause the additional stress. It might cause the additional stress on the existing transaction system. And moreover, since the same server we are using, so in the multiple ways, it has got the too much complexity in terms of arranging the data also. So that is the reason why they could face these kind of problems. To avoid these problems, like to overcome these problems, in the year 1998, SAP BW system, which was released. SAP BW system, which was released. Okay. So right from the year 1998, the BW system was, once it comes into the SAP environment. So let's assume that I have the two servers, SAP R3 system and the BW system. How it could be overcome with the help of the BW system we see now. So let's assume that we have a R3 system, we have BW system. Okay. So let's say, for example, I have a client called Nike shoes company, sports company. So they have a plan to implement SAP in their business. Initially they were using some non-SAP application, but they just want to start business. Okay, and they just want to implement SAP application to run their business in a smooth way. So any client wants to implement SAP, first they would be going to implement SAP transaction system which has the multiple functional areas, which could be mainly used the regular transactions to post the data into the system. So with the help of SAP R3 server, they are posting day-to-day transactions, the regular transactions in the business hours, they are posting into SAP R3 system. The data could be with respect to either sales or material or production or finance or HR, whatever it is. Like in the business hours, they are posting day-to-day transactions into SAP R3 system, but in the non-business hours, like in the night time, in the non-business hours, the data would be loading from SAP R3 to SAP BW system. In the non-business hours, the data would be loading from SAP R3 to SAP BW system. Like to load the data from SAP R3 to SAP BW system, Since the sales related tables, sales related data will be storing in the form of tables over here, right? So the data, the material data will get stored in the form of tables. Production data will get stored in the form of production tables like finance and HR, right? But let's say, for example, when you want to load sales data from SAP R3 system to the BW system, when you want to load the sales data, SAP R3 system to the BW system, based on the sales table structure, based on the sales table structure, you must be having the same structure at BW level, right? You must be having the same structure in the BW level. So that designing the structure in the BW, generally what we call it as data modeling. So what is this modeling, extraction and reporting? These are the basic stages of SAP BW system. Before discussing about these modeling, extraction and reporting, when you go to the concept of this BW, see, we know SAP R3 system has been developed based on the ERP concept, right? But whereas the BW system, which was developed based on the data warehousing concept, the BW system, which was developed based on the data warehousing concept. What is this data warehouse here? The data warehouse, which is nothing but it is actually just like a database which is specially designed and developed with an aim of query analysis in mind. What do you mean to say? The data warehouse is actually a database which is specially designed and developed with an aim of query analysis in mind, rather than the day-to-day transactional processing and the operational processing. So it won't be considered the data warehouse, which won't be considered the day-to-day transactional processing, day-to-day operational processing. It is just like a database which maintains more of years together data. Okay, so it contains more of historical data which is derived from transactional sources, like which is derived from single source or a multiple sources. What do you mean by single source or a multiple sources, and how it is maintaining this transaction, historical data and all this stuff? So before getting into these points, let's discuss the basic concept of this data warehouse. The concept of this data warehouse, let's go to this slide. So let's assume that I have some business which was started in the year 2020. I have some X business which was started in the year 2020. So in the year 2020, we maintained all my business data, which maintains in the form of flat file. You just assume that. And 2021 data, which was maintaining in some SAP source, and 2022 data, which was maintained in some other database. Let's assume that we have a business which was started in the year 2020. So in the 2020 data which maintains in one source, 2021 data which maintains in other source, 2022 data which maintains in other database. But what I want is, I just want to forecast my next year data, next year business, 2023. I just want to forecast my next year business. I just want to take some decisions to run my business in a better way. I just want to take some decision making. So when you want to take some decisions for the year 2023, obviously we should consider the history of the last 3 years business, right? We need to check the history of last 3 years business. Based on these 3 years business, we can able to decide how it could be my next year business. How it could be my next year business. But so when we want to, so finally what we understand, we need to analyze these last 3 years data to decide my, to take decisions on my 2023 data. But the thing is here, all these 3 years data, which was maintained in different sources. Like let's assume that the 2020 data which is maintained in the flat file, 2021 data which is maintained somewhere in a R3 system, 2022 data which is maintained some DB2 system somewhere. But when you want to analyze, I mean to say, when you want to compare all these 3 years data, so to decide my 2023 business, so when you want to compare all these 3 years data, what we need to do in the first place? We need to get all these 3 years data into one place. We need to get all these 3 years data into one application. Let's say, for example, I just want to get the 2020 data into one application. So for that, based on this 2020 data structure, the structures is nothing but the data which is maintaining in the form of fields with structure, right? So based on the structure, we need to design the structure in the server, right? New server, right? So the structure is nothing but based on the configurations. We need to establish a configuration between the source and the structure, right? The source structure and target structure, right? So while mapping the source structure and target structure, we need to design something called as a data flow. So in this data flow, like designing the data flow where we are customizing or creating or configuring or designing some objects to design the custom data flow. The designing of objects and customizing objects and all this stuff, what we call it as modeling. The data warehousing terminology, what we call it as the modeling. So what do you mean by modeling? The modeling is the area where we need to design the complete data model based on the source data structure. So for this objects, we need to design one model. For 2021 data, we need to design one model. For 2022 data, we need to design one model. So all these things, what we call it as data modeling. Okay. So once we done this data modeling, what is the next step? We need to focus on this loading. We need to focus on loading. Loading in the sense, we are trying to extract the data. We are trying to extract the data from different sources into the respective data models. We are trying to extract the data from different sources into the respective data models. That is what we call it as data extraction. Here we are trying to pull the data from different sources into the respective models, what we call it as data loading or a data extraction. This is the second stage of data warehousing mechanism. The first stage is based on the source data, need to design the data model and then load the data, that is with the help of extraction. And once we get all these 3S data into one place, we can easily compare the data, right? We can easily compare the data, like we can easily analyze the data. So where generally we analyze the data in the form of report, right? All these 3S data we can analyze in the form of report. So this is what the reporting area. So these are the areas we'll be having this data warehousing environment. We have modeling, extraction, and the reporting. These are the three things in this data warehouse. So when you want to decide to pull data from different sources, first need to design the data model, load the data, and generate the report. This is what the data warehousing concept. We have three areas. The same concept which was implemented in the BW system. Look at this here. BW also we have a modeling, extraction, and reporting. Here, what do you mean by modeling? So in the business arts, we just posting into SAP R3 system, right? With respect to the sales, material, production, or finance, whatever it is. So in the business arts, we are loading the data into BW system, but in the non-business hours, like in the night time, we are trying to load the data from R3 system to the BW system. So when you want to load data from R3 system to BW system, so based on the source structure, based on the sales table structure, we need to design some data model here, right? Based on the material table structure, need to design some data model here. That is what we call it as modeling. So once we design this data models here, what is the next step? We start loading the data from R3 system to BW system. That is what we call it as data extraction. And once finally we load data into BW system, we need to design the reports. That is what we call it as the reporting. So these are the three areas which will be there in the SAP BW system. So once you join as a BW consultant, BW software consultant, so first we need to design the data model based on the source data, and then load the data, and then generate the reports on top of the data. So these are the three activities which will be there in our SAP BW system. So this is what the basic concept of this SAP BW. Okay. So this is about this SAP BW. What I told you, SAP BW system, this was released in the year 1998, right? The first version of the BW, which was released in the year 1998. Look at this. So initially in the 1998, we were calling it as BIW, Business Information Warehouse. BIW, Business Information Warehouse. So the first version, that is 1.2a, and then 1.2b, 2.0a, 2.0b, and 2.1c. Till the version BW 2.1c, we were calling it as BIW, SAP BIW. And after that, it has been changed the name from BIW to BW with the right from the version 3.0a, 3.0a, 3.0b, 3.1, 3.1c, 3.3, 3.5 till the version 3.5. We were calling it as SAP Business Warehouse. After the 3.5, they slightly released the version is 7, 7.0, star 7.0. In the version 7.0, again the name from BW to BI. Again the name, again change the name from BW to BI. BW Business Warehouse, BI Business Intelligence, both are same. Okay, which was changed with the version is 7.0. Okay, so which was released in the year 2005. But in the year 2008, SAP people acquires this business objects. SAP people purchase the business objects reporting tool from the data warehousing environment. So initially, before buying, like purchasing the business objects into SAP environment. So earlier we were calling it as BOBJ, BOBJ. Before acquiring the BO into SAP, we were calling it as BOBJ. But they just, once they acquire the business objects into SAP environment, they just renamed from BOBJ to BOBI. BIBO. They renamed the business object with the name is BIBO. But BIBO. But again, but we have BW system, we are calling it as, we start calling it as BI. But in the BO level also we have BI, right? To avoid the confusion of the business warehouse and business objects, again, the right from the version 7.3, again the name changed back to BI to BW. BI to BW. Okay. So right from the version 7.3, we start calling it as again the business warehouse only. Okay. So it was happened in 2010. But see, as of 2010 or 2011, for SAP applications, they did not have their own database. They were using some third-party database, which is not relevant to our SAP. Those third-party databases are Oracle or SQL servers. So Oracle or SQL servers they used to use for SAP applications. But in the year 2014, 2012, they just designed their own database. SAP designed their own database, which is HANA. SAP designed their own database, which is SAP HANA. Okay. SAP HANA. HANA is a database, just like any other database. Only thing is, it is in-memory database. In-memory database means, so generally the database level, the data would be storing in the hard drive state, secondary database state. But since it is HANA is in-memory database, it does actually stores the data and process the data in the main memory. It actually stores the data and process the data also in the main memory. Here the main memory is nothing but a RAM here. Okay. So I'm not going to discuss more about this SAP HANA. Okay. So the main memory, it processes the data and stores the data in the main memory. So main memory, it means, it doesn't mean, so all the data will stores in the main memory. It doesn't mean all the transaction data will stores in the main memory. Of course, we have some options for specifying. We have some options for specifying which has to be in the main memory, which has to be in the hard disks. We have options to specify the main memory, which has to be in the main memory, which has to be in the hard disk. So we'll discuss more in the coming classes. We'll discuss more about this SAP HANA actually. Okay. So that is what we start using HANA as a database in the SAP applications right from the version, right from the year 2011. Okay. But for BW, we start using HANA as a database right from the year 2012. Right from the year 2012. So once we start using HANA as a database, this BW system, what we called as BW powered by HANA. Once we start using HANA as a database for BW applications, this BW system, we are calling it as BW powered by HANA. See, look at this, BW powered by HANA. So this BW powered by HANA mainly used for pure performance optimization. Okay. So we start using HANA as a database only to improve the quite lot of performance. But in 7.4, in the 2013. So they released the version called as BW 7.4. So generally we start using HANA, we start using this SAP with the help of SAP GA model. But right from the version 7.4, we start using something called as introduces something called as an HANA Studio, where we have some platform called as Eclipse platform. So that could be confusion. So we'll discuss about this Eclipse platform, what is there and all this stuff we'll discuss in the coming classes. And 7.3, 7.4 and 7.5 and the BW, finally BW for HANA, they have released these versions. It is just like 7. How it is maintained in BW 3.3, 3.5 like that. So like this BW 7.0, 7.3 powered by HANA. Once we start using HANA as a database, we are calling it as BW powered by HANA. 7.3, 7.4, 7.5 and all. Okay. These are the, so we have some differences. So advanced technologies, some advanced improvements from version to version we have. Okay. So those things we'll discuss in the regular sessions. Coming sessions we'll discuss these differences 7.3, 7.4, and 7. So one of the differences, we have some what we call as some info providers we have which maintains data physically. So but whereas those cubes and DSOs we have, whereas when it comes to 7.4, 7.5, we have some advanced DSOs, composite providers and all the stuff we have. Okay. So the guys who knows, anybody who knows the BW earlier, okay, don't miss the next session. In the next session, we will discuss all the stuff. Since so my motto is for this today's session is only the guys, only the participants who are very new to this SAP. So I just keep in mind to for this freshers. So that is the reason we start discussing about what is SAP, what is ERP, what are the modules and all. Okay, the guys who knows very well about this BW, what the older versions. So you don't miss this next class. So in the next class we start discussing all this stuff. Okay. So these are the versions about this BW system. So this is what exactly the basic understanding about this BW, BI and SAP and all this stuff. Okay.